Alright, back for another episode of Crazy Dad's Garage. Time for a follow-up on our epic fail will it start video. So, if you'll remember, I dropped something into my radiator fan and it did a number on the fan blade, which then cut a nice little circle all the way around my radiator. So we're going to work on replacing that. The fan, I think I might be able to straighten it. I realize there could be metal fatigue problems there, so I want to be careful about that. But I'm going to try to straighten that. The reason that this wasn't an ultimate disaster for me is this old radiator that I had a lot of holes in it, and I'd done a lot of patching on it and was putting some stop leak in it and things, and so this just forces me to go buy, I think I'm going to buy a new aluminum radiator and put in the thing. So I'll have a totally top-notch cooling system in it, and we'll be able to move forward with that. So anyway, that's kind of the direction I'm going to take here. We're going to work on this fan, see if we can get it where it's usable. If not, I'll be looking for another one. So we'll be back when we kind of get some progress made there. Alright guys, back here, another episode of the Crazy Dad Rat Rod, and as you know, last time we were going along really good until we bent the fan and put it through the radiator, and so I'm still waiting to get a radiator yet, and I got to save up a few pennies for that. I think I'm going to get an aluminum one and make it fit. They make a direct replacement for this that's aluminum. The only problem is right here, it has square corners on the tops of it, and that works fine in the pickup and the Dodge Challenger that this was originally equipment in. But in this truck, actually right there on my hood up here, I have less than 1/4 inch of clearance at that point. And so I can't put a square cornered radiator in there, it'll hit. So I'm going to have to, I think I figured out how I can modify the aluminum replacement for this. So I'm going to get that probably move in that direction. But right now, I was talking to a guy the other day, and honestly one of my weaknesses in the automotive department all these years is I'm not good at tuning up a new engine and getting it to run exactly the way I want it. And so I was talking with a mechanic friend the other day, and he says, well, what kind of carburetor are you running? And I said, well, it's factory 4-barrel. Decided it was probably Quadrajet, and I think that's right. I didn't look at it that closely, but then he says, okay, what are you doing for a distributor? And I said, well, I'm using the old factory points type distributor and a coil because I want to keep it simple, and I know I can always fix that. I had an HEI laying around, but I didn't want to mess with that because anyway, I just had some reservations about it. He says, if I was you, he says, I would take that distributor out right there and throw it away and put your HEI in there, because it's just way easier to get it tuned and set right, apparently, than having to fool around with adjusting the points, getting the dwell set, and all that kind of stuff like that. And, you know, he pretty well convinced me to do that. He actually said all the builds that he does, he says he just goes online and you can actually get a fully loaded HEI cap rotor and plug wires for about $80 online. I thought, well, that's pretty cool. But I just happened to have one laying here, and I thought, well, you know what, let's just go ahead and make that conversion while we're at a stopping point here anyway. So I pulled it out, got it setting up here, and first thing I did was I got my old one that I use for priming this engine. So you remember that one's got the gears ground off of it down here. It's all stripped out. But I wanted to check that this distance from here to here was correct, and that these things are in the right position, and they were. So apparently I've got, this is for a Chevy. I don't know if the HEIs are different from small block to big blocks and from Chevy to Oldsmobile and Pontiac. I don't know. Probably they are. But anyway, this one does fit a small block Chevy, and that's what we want. So my next deal is I'm going to start cleaning it up here. I want to get all the gunk and grease off the outside of it here. First, to make it not contaminate my motor, but second, to look nice. then I will clean up this cap and rotor and stuff like that. I'll check out these plug wires, see if they're actually any good. If not, I may have to buy another set of plug wires. But we'll move along that path, and then I'll get this one all set up and ready to go back in. We'll pull the one out of the car, out of the rat rod, and get them swapped out. So what that's going to allow me to do here, on an HEI, you have two input wires. They're right here. This is your main power wire that supplies power to, it goes in here and supplies this coil, which is in top, and runs the whole distributor. And this other one is a tack wire. So what it's going to allow me to do over here, I'll be able to get rid of my distributor and replace it with the HEI, but I'll also be able to get rid of this coil and its bracket, and this is the this is the tack wire. So this one will attach to my tack wire over there that goes into the HEI, and then it'll also let me get rid of this ballast resistor, because an HEI runs on full 12-volt power, and this wire right here is actually the one in my wiring harness that was intended for an HEI. So I'll just pull it off, get rid of this ballast resistor. These wires right here, I got to make sure I got them all doing what they're supposed to. Actually, this one can go away. It's the one that goes to the distributor, and this one comes from the starter, so I can get rid of this. Both of these wires will just come clear out of the harness, and then I'll take this one and run it over there and stub it into the connector on that HEI, and literally it should be that simple to get that swap done. So that's going to be the direction we're going to be working and moving on here, and so I will start into that process and show you what that looks like as we get ready to do it. And I'll actually show you a couple of little steps on how to make sure that you get that done right. So I will be back after I get my HEI cleaned up and ready to do the swap. Okay, it's Eldon back here with another episode of Crazy Dad's Garage on the Crazy Dad Rat Rod. Let's see if we can correct the problem that we created here. If you'll remember, as we tried to get this thing started, we succeeded, and then we dropped the timing light into the fan and bent the fan and took out the radiator. You can see the moisture pattern on the front side of the radiator where we cut a hole in it on the back side. Yeah, look at that nice pretty circle going around there, just ½ inch deep, cuts every rib that it crosses. So much for that radiator. So we're going to correct that problem today. Got ourselves a new radiator here, all nice and pretty, and now we've got to do a little bit of modifying on it to get it to fit. So I got to be aware here that what I do to this radiator will completely void the warranty on it, so I just need to be careful with it. But as you can see, this one has an angled flange here that comes out, and then a 90-degree angle coming over this way, and that's how it mounted in the 75 Dodge pickup that I got it out of. But in order to make it fit this thing, I had modified that. I'd taken a hammer and flattened that flange out. I had to make some cuts in these stiffening ridges here, but I flattened that flange out so that it came straight across this way, and that allowed me to bolt it into this angle iron support system that I had made up here. And I had this one out the other day, and it comes right out. It's really not very hard to get out. So I'm going to pull it out. I'm going to do that modification on those brackets of it, and then we'll be ready to replace it back in here and hook everything back up to it. So yeah, I guess, I don't know, I'm going to work on those two things, and then I'll be back here to show you what I've accomplished. Alright, so I think I've got this thing ready to come out now. I had There's 4 bolts down each side here. I've got those out, and that lets this come loose. I've got 2 transmission cooler lines down at the bottom that had to come off. This radiator hose, the other lower radiator hose, and my overflow hose right here were all that had to come off, so I think I'm ready to come out now. And voila, that's as simple as it gets. Oh boy, so maybe you can see better here. The head looks like a number 6 in my radiator, where it first hit it and bent in and then curved right down. And anyway, made a huge mess out of that. So there we go. Radiator's out. And now we'll move on to fixing up the other radiator and getting it modified to where it will fit. Alright, we got her modified. Ready to put in. Let's see if we can get some better shots of the sides. So we got those straightened out down the sides like that. Got my transmission cooler line adapters put in, and so we're actually ready to slide this thing back in now. And I'll see if I can get a picture of that going in, and we'll take it from there. Okay, here we go. We'll see how this works out. Hopefully we got our dimensions right. They manufactured them accurately enough that it will actually work. And it looks like we're in good shape. Well, actually one little problem there. Got a little bit of transmission fluid sitting on the bottom here. I'd like to get that cleaned off before we put the thing back in. So, oh, oops, that's not what I wanted to happen. There we go. Okay. Alright, well, that looks really good. Okay, now I'll have to get the bolts fitted back into it, and I'd rather not wrestle with that on the camera, so I'm going to do that off camera, and we will show you what happens when we get to that point. Alright, there it is. Got her all back in. So, got my 4 bolts down each side. Had to drill holes for these 2 middle ones here on both sides because they didn't go all the way through. The factory just had the top one here and this bottom one down there, so I just feel like putting 4 in there would be a lot sturdier. So I got those drilled and put in. Got my hoses hooked back up. Got my transmission lines down there, and excuse me, overflow line. Yeah, another lower radiator hose and transmission line down there, hiding in the dark. So that's got it all hooked back up. Now I'm just waiting for a fan. So I'm going to have to find that. I'm not having much luck because that fan that I had off of there was an original equipment Chevy fan, and I'm finding now it must have been from the 50s or early 60s. And it was kind of hard to find in the first place, but I happened to find one somebody had around. So I may end up going to a flex fan in there. Not my best favorite preference, but if I have to do that I will because they're easier to find. So got that all taken care of. Once I get that fan in there, we'll be done with that part. Now, some of the other things that I'm going to do here, remember I talked about replacing the standard points ignition and distributor with my HEI unit, so I'm going to tackle that next. And I don't know, I may tear into this carburetor because it wasn't running quite right, but I want to get that ignition working before I dive into the carburetor. So anyway, that'll probably be where we'll go next, is starting to pull out that ignition stuff so that I can put it back in and get that HEI set up. Pretty simple swap actually, but we'll walk you through the pieces of it as we go. So be back in a little bit. Okay, boys and girls, we're back here to take the next step here. I bought a nice expensive flex fan, which was actually cheap for a flex fan. $59 on sale at O'Reilly's, but it hits my alternator pulley and interferes with the fan belt, so I can't use it. So I've been looking all over the place, haven't found a replacement fan, so I went ahead and did some more work on my old original one here, and I've got it where it's straight enough that I'm going to reuse it. It's not always, not ever maybe the best idea, but it is what it is, and I'm going to put it back together so I can get this thing on the road. So I straightened it on it a little bit more until I got it, especially where it lays flat. It was rocking because I didn't have it flat here, so I got it flat that way and flip it over and got it flat that way. And see, you got just a tiny bit of rock in it there. But I did that, and so I've got it to where it's pretty close to where it needs to be. And I don't know, if I get it on here and I've still got too much vibration in it, then yeah, I'll have to do something. But at least I think it's going to turn straight, and we'll just see. But I'll get it on here and get this thing back together and see if we can get her going today. So I'll move forward from there, show you when I got that in place, and then we'll tackle the distributor and the other things that we've got to do there. So we'll be back in just a minute when I get that fan on. Okay, the fan blade is back in place. There we go. Now, interestingly enough, couldn't put that flex fan on because the blades on it curved back here quite a ways and were hitting the alternator pulley and would have hit the fan belt if we had it on. And this whole swap of getting this aftermarket radiator put in here has produced some challenges, because we've got this new blade was actually hitting, because this fitting, the section of it right here in the new radiator protrudes out maybe another 1/4 to 1/2 inch than the other one did. So I've tweaked the fan blade a little bit, every one of them, so that I've got the same clearance there, as well as the same thing up here. I'm making sure I'm maintaining my clearance on that alternator pulley up there. So I had to do those kind of things, but really the thing's back in there. It's very evenly spaced everywhere now, so I think it's going to take care of any balance problems I have. The other problem I've had is that this point right here, this radiator has a more pronounced angle on it here than the original one. The original one, this where this rolled over, was a lot flatter in this way, and so my hood now actually hits here, whereas before I had maybe 1/4 of an inch of clearance there. So what that's going to cause me to do, interestingly enough, is I'm going to have to lift the hood up. And what I've decided, it's going to require about 3/4 of an inch to clear here. So I've put some spacer blocks in here, gets myself 1.5 inches. And interestingly enough, I actually like the look of it better with the hood raised up. It actually fits better. It gives me, so I've got about 1.5 inches of spacing here. That's going to give me 1.5 inches from here to the bottom of where the hood sits. And really all I'm going to have to do is build myself some spacers and raise this bracket up to where it matches that. But those should be pretty simple things that I'll get accomplished today. But anyway, just little things like that, when you run into something that fell together so tightly as this original radiator did in there, you just run into those things when you have to put a replacement in. So anyway, interesting thoughts, but I'm back to the point now where I think that'll all work out. So I'm going to get the fan belt on there and then dive into the distributor project. So we'll be back as we move forward. Here we are with all of our distributor parts jerked out of there. So frees up a whole bunch of space. Now we can drop the other distributor in. Here's my pile of parts that just got removed. You got the distributor itself, cap and wires and things like that. We got the coil and the mounting bolts for it, and this is our ballast resistor and the wiring that's extra that we won't need now because an HEI just uses a full 12 volts and a ballast resistor is a voltage drop mechanism. So that, a few cable ties, and we're ready to go back in now with our new one. So we'll get it over here and start that process. I did crank my engine around to where my timing mark is lined up down there, which you probably can't see here. I don't know, I can kind of see it. Anyway, got it lined up with top dead center, so we're going to drop the distributor back in, and the way we've got it set up, it ends up so that our rotor is lined up with the valley here and pointing straight towards the front of the engine. And then we can tweak our body of our distributor a little bit there to get the timing correct. But that's what we're going to do at this point, and I'll get it stuck in there because you don't want to hear me say the words I might be saying when I try to get it to mesh with the gears and the oil pump drive shaft. So we'll get her in there and be back at that point. Alright, there we go. Got the distributor down in and got all my plug wires run over into here. Still got to put the wire separators on them, but I'll get to that later. Get those done. And got everything wired up. You can't really see it. There's two wires back in here that attach into the distributor. One of them has to come from the key and the other is your tack wire. So those are hooked up. I believe we're all ready to go there. Guess I forgot to put that back on it. Holds the plug wires down in place on the cap. And got my vacuum line hooked back up. So I think we're ready to go with that. So I'll get my wire separators put on there, and yeah, I think that'll kind of get us ready to go with that. And I guess the next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to pull that carburetor off there and take it apart and just see if I need to clean it up any, because it's been sitting for, like I said, 20 years. And the other day when we were running it, something wasn't quite working right, and I got a hunch that it's in that carburetor. So I want to clean it up and make sure that we're good there, and then we will be ready to give this thing another shot and see if we can get it to run. So be back there when we get those things done. Okay, wire separators are in place. Cleans that up quite a bit. The other side's down over here. Both of them required a little different approach to it, but got them done. And got the carburetor off, sitting on the workbench. So we're going to go through, clean that up, put it back on. And at that point, we should be ready to go. Okay, boys and girls, I fought this thing all day yesterday and part of the day before trying to get the timing set right on it, and it has driven me crazy. And it's just, yeah, this is going to show how stupid I am, I guess, but nobody's ever really taught me how to do this part of it, and I didn't know. So finally I gave up last night, went on YouTube, did some searching, and found a 4-minute, it's probably a 5-minute video on how to install the distributor in a small block Chevy the easy way. And I followed his thing step by step, got in my car, and boom, it fired right up. It idles, it runs good. So I don't even know where I was off, except that I think the biggest problem was I ended up with my number 1 wire on the wrong terminal on my distributor here. And so that had me off and was not letting me get the adjustment that I needed. But I didn't know how to tell that from everything that I had. So anyway, I'm probably going to bore you a little bit, but this is hypercritical information. I got this, and I'm highly suggesting, if you're putting an engine together, go to this YouTube channel right here. It's Scott's INFL, and the video is called How to Install a Distributor in a Small Block Chevy the Easy Way. I highly recommend that you go do that. It was simple. He not only tells you how to get the oil pump shaft lined up so that the distributor just drops straight down in, but he does everything. Here's his steps. I wrote them down. Again, go to his video. It's better than this. But first thing, get your engine set at top dead center. Make sure you're on the compression stroke so that then your line on your balancer is at the 0 line on the marker. Then with your distributor out, get a long screwdriver and a flashlight, shine down in there and get your slot in your oil pump shaft so that it's sitting at an angle like 11 to 5 angle on a clock. Okay, then to start, when you go to drop the distributor in, you want to have the vacuum advance canister pointed over to the passenger side, and then you want to have your rotor pointed at the second bolt from the back on your intake manifold. So that bolt right there. So if you line up your rotor with that bolt, it actually will drop right down in, engage with the gears on the cam, and turn in and drop right onto the oil pump shaft and drop right down in the hole all the way. And it did. I fought that a bunch, but it worked perfectly. Then you put the cap on, and this was another piece I didn't know. It says, so these lines on this coil body here form a line going this way. He says if you line those up parallel with the back of your engine or with your firewall or whatever, it's going to have it timed almost perfectly. So drop it in, put the cap on, line up the lines on the coil parallel to the back of the engine, and then your number 1 wire is the third one back from your vacuum advance canister. So here's one that's just right beside the canister, here's another one, here's the third one. So you start here with your firing order, and your firing order is 1, 8, 4, 3, 6, 5, 7, 2. And you put those in there, you hook your wires up right here correctly. Big plug in the back, your big wire on the right on the terminal that says battery. You do that, get in, and this engine that has fought me for a day and a half fired up perfectly and idled and revs up and does exactly what it's supposed to do. The only thing I've got to do now is find a timing light to replace the one that I dropped in my fan that created all the havoc with the radiator, and get my timing set exactly where it's supposed to be, which is supposed to be very close to where it's at now, and I should be on the road and ready to go. So I just want to throw that in. Scott, whoever you are, thanks a million for putting that video up. That was a lifesaver for me, and I think it will be for a lot of guys who don't know how to do this. I'm sure there's other videos out there, but that one was a short one, easy to watch because he's doing it on an engine stand, and just an excellent video. So I am running now. I've got to top off my transmission fluid. I've got a antifreeze leak down there that I want to put a different hose clamp on, and I'm going to be ready to drive this pig, I think. I'll put my hood back on. Actually, probably no I won't for the first drive because I've still got to do some adjustments on that. But anyway, yeah, I think I'll just take it out and go for a spin just like this. Just so that I can drive it. Yeah. Alright, well there we go. I'm going to be saving that piece of paper and sticking it up on the wall of my shop with some of my other things that I don't ever want to lose again for when I have to do a small block Chevy again. So there we go, guys. I'm grateful for you watching the channel. Hope you like and subscribe, and we'll be back as we wrap up this phase of the video. Yeah, I went through all that and actually forgot to show you that it actually starts. So here we go. Well, one little kick over and isn't that cool? That's so fun to have it work that well. That's what I've always hoped for, because I knew it should be that simple, but I couldn't figure it out. So anyway, now I gotta work my way out of the garage, get around the other truck, and see if I can make it without tearing up the yard, because this thing's so low, and then I'll take it for a spin. Okay, here we are on the maiden voyage, and I got it out this far, and it's got a few little rattles and shakes in it that I gotta figure out what's going on, but it's working. I'm getting some kind of vibration in it. I'm not sure what it is, so I've got to get it back to the house and check that out. But hey, we're on the road, guys. It's a 5-year plus legacy of building this thing, and this is, for me, totally exciting. So anyway, it works. I just wanted to show you that, and we'll be back probably to wrap this video up in the shop. I gotta see what I got going on there. So anyway, a little bit more of our first drive here, and then we'll head back to the shop. Signing off. Well, there she is, guys. She runs and drives. Alright, I just got to do some dialing in, some little detail stuff. You got different wiring things that aren't working right and some things like that. Like I said, I got a vibration underneath the back of it here. I'm not sure what that is. I've got to dig through that and figure that out. I don't know if it's in my drive shaft, which is what it sounds like, or if I've just got something else rattling against something there, like one of my exhausts against the frame. If that's the case, that's an easy fix. So anyway, I'll deal with that here as we, just on my own off camera, getting those little things dialed in. But I got her. Finally, I got to drive the thing. That is the fun of building something like this. So anyway, there you go, guys. The Crazy Dad Rat Rod lives, and we'll get this posted. Be back with another episode here in the near future as we get the thing sorted out and really on the road.